Welcome back. Today I would like to share with you how I've made the apron pattern that is available on my Etsy shop. This video I will share with you how to make the youth size. It's also available in an adult size in that same pattern. So you get to choose what size you want to make. And for the first step, aside from cutting it out, cut it out, and then you're going to take that contrasting fabric and sew 1/2 inch seam allowance along the bottom and press your seams and serge or zigzag stitch the seam allowance and press the seam up towards the top of the apron and stitch about 2 rows, one, maybe 2 rows of top stitching along that seam right around along that edge. And then you're going to take the smaller patch pocket and you can serge or zigzag stitch the top edge, fold it down about 1/2 inch and top stitch the same way that you did, same style of top stitching. I did 2 rows. And now you're going to press each one of those sides of the pocket inwards about 1/2 inch. Here I'm doing a finger press just to kind of get my lines, but I went over to the iron and gave everything a good solid press with steam to kind of help give me those crisp edges. And then I top stitched along the inside of that seam allowance, making sure I went through every layer and only did 1 row of that top stitching because I will do the second row later. I marked on the apron using the reference point of the pattern. I marked on the apron where the placement of the pocket would be. And then I only did 1 row of top stitching, as you see me finger pointing along the pocket. Do yourself a favor and don't sew your pocket closed on accident. And yeah, that's pretty much how it's done for the first pocket. And you do that 2 more times with your larger pockets. Serge along the top part of the pocket, fold it over 1/2 inch, top stitch that portion twice, and then again fold in each side of the pocket. I liked to do, like, again, that finger press to kind of help create the reference point, but you can get a little bit more picky if you want to. There's plenty of tips and techniques on how to do pockets, patch pockets specifically. So choose whatever method you prefer. Here I was being a little bit picky about how those corners were going to line up, and I used my ruler just to make sure that they were going to be more even and mirrored. And then I went over to my ironing board and pressed those corners in and kind of referenced my pattern as well to make sure that it was the shape that I wanted. And then I did the 1 stitch, single stitch of top stitching to kind of hold that in place, that seam allowance in place on the pocket. And then I took that pattern again and poked the corners of the patch pocket with my awl and took my marker. It's like a water soluble marker. I think I have a description in the link. I'll put one in there. It's Dritz. I love this thing because it disappears with water or time if you just give it, like, I don't know, 48 hours or something, maybe less than that. And then I folded the pattern the other direction. You can barely see it, but if you look closely, you can see on the camera where those purple marks are. You can see it a lot better in real time with the naked eye. And I use that as my reference point for placing the bottom patch pockets. You can also make sure they're really even by measuring other parts of the pattern, like in congruence with the side seams or whatever you want to do. You could even eyeball this, honestly. And then I did the single row of top stitching as I'm finger pointing, and there you have it. Both pockets on the bottom are done, and give it a test to make sure you didn't sew them closed. And then we move on to the, oh hey, that girl always gets in my way. Moving along to the Armscye, you can serge or zigzag stitch that seam, and then you fold it over about 1/2 inch. And it might be a little tricky because it's going to want to pull on you a little bit, but since this is being cut on the bias, you can easily manipulate the fabric and make it more flat once it's finished. So I pinned it, and then I stitched 2 rows of top stitching, gave it a good press with the iron, and that helped keep all of that puckering that you were seeing kind of go away with the steam. And you do the same thing to the other Armscye. So serge the edge, fold it over 1/2 inch, and then do the 2 rows of top stitching, and voila, you have that part done as well. And now you can serge or zigzag stitch all the other raw edges, so the top of the apron, the side seams, and the bottom. And on those side seams, that was really fast. I folded over 1/2 inch and then top stitched it down. And then I moved on to the hem. You see me folding it up 1/2 inch. I went over to the iron and I pressed it. And I'm going to fold it up another solid inch. Press it, and along the folded edge of the hem, so not like the bottom of the apron, but the top of the folded part, if that makes sense. That is what I will use as my reference point for the stitching line for the top stitching right there. If that was confusingly worded, I am so sorry. So then we go over to the iron once it's stitched, press it down, trim your seams, and we can move on to the top basically the same way we did the bottom. Fold it 1/2 inch, press it, fold it down another inch, press it, put your pins in, and do 2 rows of top stitching along that line right there, and give it another press. And if you've got little hands helping you, I don't know, just makes it fun. She's so cute. And now we move on to the, what are they called? The channels, the Apron Tie channels. I serged that side as well as the Armscye side and the side seam. And focusing on the Armscye, that curved portion of this little wedge, you are going to fold that in. It looks, I think I did about 1/2 inch. I think I did 1/2 inch, and double stitch 2 rows of top stitching. And then you're going to move on to the side seam and fold it 1/2 inch, pin it down, do the 2 rows of top stitching, and then serge the remaining 2 tiny little portions of the raw edge. Pin it into place with wrong sides together, and using your tie as a reference, you're going to want to draw a stitching line for where that channel, that tie channel, will be. I did that first line was a mistake. The second line was closer to the edge of the apron. I'm using the top stitching kind of as a guideline. And then I do the same for the bottom part of the channel, using that tie as my reference point, and then stitching the top and side seam to kind of help keep that corner tie channel in place. And stitch there, go down there, then stitch that triangle, and that creates the wedge. I'm hoping you can see this. I think it's okay. I think it's okay lighting anyways. And you do the same thing to the other side as well. Armscye, 1/2 inch, stitch it down, do your top stitching, then move over to the side seam, fold it over 1/2 inch, stitch it down, do the top stitching, and serge the remaining 2 tiny little pieces, that very top and very bottom, just because they're raw edges. So I chose to serge them. You could probably leave them alone too. That's probably fine. And with wrong sides together, pin it in place and draw the reference line for your stitching for the tie channel. Yeah, I'm hoping this is straightforward, because Sometimes when I'm speaking, it feels redundant, but let me know. Oh, for this one, I decided to use my ruler kind of as a reference. I measured where the beginning point and the end point were on the other side just to give it symmetry rather than just using the tie as my reference. But yeah, do what works for you. Just get it done. And I think that's a better visual of where those stitching lines need to be. Moving on to the ties, you're going to cut off 2 inches from the bottom of the tie and put it off to the side. I think it's 3 inches for the adult size, but refer to the instructions on the adult size. We'll come back to that little 2-inch piece later. Fold the bottom of one of the strands in like 1/4 of an inch and then stitch along the top edge. Fold it again, stitch it again, and that just keeps the bottom of your ties from unraveling. And repeat the same steps to the other strand as well. You fold that 1/2 an inch, stitch it down, fold it another 1/2 inch and stitch it down. And then taking one of those strands, you can pull it all the way through, ensuring that wrong sides are facing the same direction, and fold the other end 1/4 of an inch and stitch that down into place. Then you're going to take that one that you just stitched, just that has the single fold, and you're going to place it on the top of the apron corner. And I'm drawing a reference line just to make it easier to see, and I like to stitch a square box with an X in the center to really hold that tie in place. And you repeat the same steps to the other corner as well. Hi, Penny. Always wanting to be on the sewing table. Then you can take the tie channel, attach a safety pin to your tie, and that helps pull the strand through easier for yourself. And once you pull it through, you're just going to use this as a reference for where that extra 2-inch tie wedge is. So, excuse me, Penny, gotta go. I pull it down and pull the other one through. Again, this is just a step to kind of like reference where I want the tie to crisscross in the back. And this step is probably optional. You don't have to do this part, but I wanted to make sure that the crisscross in the back had something to go through as well. But yeah, this step, not exactly a requirement. And I folded that little 2-inch wedge. We come back to that. Fold that 1/4 of an inch, stitch it down, and then with the raw edge that's unstitched, there you go. Stitch it into place and then fold it over and then stitch again into place on the top and the bottom. I don't know if that made enough sense. I'm so sorry. And let me know if that was confusing. I can make a short video about it and kind of add more clarity to it, I hope. Then moving along, we're almost done here. You basically thread that through, try to keep everything from unraveling, twisting on you, and thread it through the channel once more, pull it through, and there you have it. You've got a completed apron. I'm so proud of you. You did it. And now you can make yourself one too, and you can make matching aprons for you and your little. It's really fun. I love baking with Charlie, and I'm so happy that she now has an apron to wear while we're baking. I think it just adds so much to our time together. And how annoying is it when you finish a project and you realize there's a stain? How did this happen? I don't know what that is. Probably oil. It's great. Anyways, thank you so much for hanging out this long, watching this video. Like, subscribe, do all the things, and go check out my Etsy shop. Love you all. Bye.